Very good morning, students, and once again, welcome to the digital classroom of General Science. Dear students, we had started with the lesson Cell and Cell Organelles in the last lecture, and as I had told you that it's not a new topic for you, we had studied about the cell and the different organs which are embedded inside the cytoplasm in the cell. Also, we had studied. And this year, we are going to study the plant cell, animal cell, the differences between these two, the different cell organelles which are present inside the cell, their structure, their function, everything we are going to study in very much detail. Now, just to revise what we had studied in the previous lecture, I'll just tell you the points. First of all, we had studied about the plant cell, animal cell, the differences between the plant cell and animal cell, like in plant cell, the cell membrane is present, animal cell also the cell membrane is present, but the difference is cell wall is only present in plant cell and absent in animal cell. Then plastids, they are present in the plant cell, whereas they are absent in the animal cell. Then one more difference we had seen, that the plant cell contains large vacuoles and animal cell has small vacuoles. So these were some of the differences between the plant cell and the animal cell. Then we had studied about the components of the cell, like the cell wall, its structure, its function. We know that it gives support to the cell and it protects the cell. Next is plasma membrane or cell membrane. This separates the cell components from the outer environment. We had also studied about the structure of plasma membrane, that in plasma membrane, the protein molecules are embedded in the two layers of phospholipids, and the very important function of plasma membrane is that it allows only some substances to enter inside the cell while it prevents other substances. Then we had studied about different processes which consume solar energy and which does not consume solar energy. The processes which consume energy are endocytosis and exocytosis, and the processes which do not consume cellular energy, like diffusion and osmosis. Then in the same topic, we had also studied about the isotonic solution, hypotonic solution and hypertonic solution. Then we had started with the cytoplasm, which is a liquid which is filled between the plasma membrane and the nucleus, and it has the different cell organelles. Then we had studied about the nucleus. Nucleus is also called as the boss of the cell because it regulates and controls all the activities of the cell. Then we had studied about the endoplasmic reticulum, which is an extension of the nuclear membrane. This endoplasmic reticulum is of two types, smooth and rough. The rough has bead-like ribosomes on its outer surface. Then we had also studied about the functions of the endoplasmic reticulum, that it gives the framework of the cell. It also helps in the conduction of proteins, and the toxins which enter inside the cell, they are also flushed out of the body via endoplasmic reticulum. So this all we had studied in the previous science lecture. Now today we are going to start with the new cell organelle, that is Golgi complex. So let's see what Golgi complex is, what is its structure and what are its functions. Golgi complex. Now these are made up of hollow tubes, the flat sacs as you can see, and these sacs are parallel to each other. These parallel flat sacs are called as cisternae. Now the proteins which are synthesized in endoplasmic reticulum, they are enclosed in these vesicles, okay, and these vesicles, they fuse with the Golgi membrane and the content is emptied in them. Now as these proteins, they are passed into the cisternae, they are modified with the help of certain enzymes present in the cisternae. Then they are packed in these vesicles. Thus, this Golgi complex is also called as packaging department. As you can see, the new vesicle which contains the proteins. So, it is one of the function. Then what are the functions of this Golgi complex present in the cell? Now it is the secretory organ of the cell. As I said, it is also called as packaging department because here the enzymes, mucus, proteins, pigments, whatever are synthesized in the cell, they are packed and they are dispatched, they are sent to the different locations. Then they produce vacuoles also. If you remember, we had seen the structure of cell, plant cell and animal cell. In both, the vacuoles are present. So these vacuoles are produced by the Golgi complex, and they also help in the formation of cell wall, plasma membrane and lysosomes. So these are all the functions of the Golgi complex. Next cell organelle is lysosomes. Now lysosomes, as you can see, they are made up of single membrane. They are not made up of double membrane like the nucleus or the Golgi complex. Lysosomes are made up of single membrane and they are filled with the digestive enzymes. So it is the enzyme complex present in a single membrane. Now what are the functions? Now these lysosomes perform a very important function and they are called as demolition squads. That is, whatever organs are destroyed or the debris present inside the cell, they are destroyed by the lysosomes. Thus, they are called as demolition squad. And they are also called as suicidal bags because whenever any cell becomes old or it is damaged, the lysosome, it bursts off, right? And then it engulfs that cell organelle. So thus, it is also called as suicide bags. Then it destroys viruses and bacteria that attack the cell. So it improves the immune system of the cell also. And whenever there is no food for the cell, that time these lysosomes, they digest the stored proteins and fats. So these are all the functions of the lysosomes. Then next we are going to start important organelle of the cell, which is mitochondria. And you know, students, this is also called as powerhouse of the cell. Now why it is called as powerhouse of the cell? Because the extra amount of energy which is produced inside the cell, that is stored in the mitochondria, and as and when the extra energy is required, the energy is taken from the mitochondria. Thus, they are called as powerhouse of the cell. I'll explain this, I'll make it more easy with a very simple example. Now, when your parents, they get the salary, do they spend whole amount of the salary? No. They keep some amount of the money in the bank, right? Why they keep it in the bank? Because it happens that during some months there is a function, there is a relative's marriage, there is an emergency at home, somebody is ill, right? Some extra expenses take place. So from where to take the money? So that time your parents, they withdraw the money, their own money from the bank, right? So similarly, the mitochondria is like a bank for the cell. Okay, so whenever the extra amount of energy is required, the energy is given by the mitochondria. One more example I'll give you. When you do the exercise, or when you run, or when you do yoga, right, you need extra energy, right? So what happens? That time also the energy is taken from the mitochondria, which is stored, which is kept inside the mitochondria, so that it can be used as and required by the cell. Now let's see the structure of the mitochondria. The mitochondria is having double membrane. As you can see in the picture, the inner membrane and the outer membrane. The inner membrane is porous and it is deeply folded. You can see the folds, right? And these folds are called as cristae, like mountains. The inner membrane form mountain-like structures which are called as cristae. And why these folds are there? To increase the surface area of the mitochondria. Because the chemical process, the biochemical process that takes place inside the mitochondria, it can take on a larger extent. So, the inner membrane of the mitochondria forms the folds due to which the surface area increases. And these folds are called as cristae. Now, the cavity which is present inside the inner membrane, it contains a gel-like substance in which the ribosomes are present, the phosphate granules are present, and even the DNA is present. Mitochondria is one of the organelle in the cell which contains DNA. Now, with the help of the enzymes, mitochondria performs a very important function. It oxidizes the carbohydrates and fats in the cell. We eat carbohydrate, fat, protein in the form of different variety of food, right? So these are oxidized and we take in oxygen during respiration. So with this respiration, the carbohydrates and the fats, they get oxidized and they produce the energy. So when the oxidation of carbohydrates and fats or food takes place inside the mitochondria, the energy is produced in the form of ATP, that is adenosine triphosphate. Now it is a energy rich compound and this is adenosine triphosphate. In plant cells, the mitochondria are less. Any guesses? Why? Why animals need more energy? They have more mitochondria, more amount of energy produced, more amount of ATP produced. Yes, very, very important difference between the plants and animals. Plants are stationary. They don't move from one place to another. But animals, they move from one place to another, so they need more amount of energy. That is the reason why number of mitochondria are more in animal cells compared to the plant cells, because animal cells, they need more energy, right? So here, the more the number of mitochondria, more the amount of energy in the form of ATP or adenosine triphosphate is produced. You know, there is one more compound which is at lower level of this ATP. It is ADP, that is adenosine diphosphate. Whenever extra amount of energy is required, this adenosine triphosphate converts into adenosine diphosphate, right? In ATP, triphosphate, tri means 3. So in this compound, 3 phosphate atoms are present. When it converts into ADP or adenosine diphosphate, di means 2. So when this one of the phosphate is separated from ATP, the energy is released. Okay. So this is all about the structure of the mitochondria and functions of the mitochondria. It is also called as powerhouse of the cell. Now, one important point here is mitochondria, as I said, it has its own DNA. That means it has its own DNA material, right? Genetic material. DNA is a genetic material. Thus, it can produce its own proteins. And second important point about mitochondria are they are absent in the RBCs. Students, if you remember, the blood has 3 types of cells, and the liquid, that is called as plasma. In the plasma, the 3 types of cells are present, which are red blood cells or RBC, white blood cells or WBC, and platelets. Now, out of these, the RBCs, they do not have mitochondria. Why? Because they carry the oxygen. RBC function, as I told you in the previous lesson, if you remember, RBCs are red in color. They have an iron compound, hemoglobin, because of which the color of the RBC is red. Now, this hemoglobin combines with the oxygen which we inhale in respiration, and it forms a compound oxyhemoglobin, right? And then this RBC is carrying the oxygen to the different parts of the body. So, when the oxygen is carried by the RBCs, they do not use it for themselves. That is why the mitochondria are absent in them, because mitochondria synthesizes the proteins, carbohydrates and lipids and produce energy, right? So that is the reason why mitochondria are absent in RBCs or red blood cells. So next time, always remember, just remember bank mitochondria. You should always correlate and remember. It always becomes easy to remember, students. I always emphasize in the class also that make pairs, correlate. Powerhouse or mitochondria, bank. Extra amount of money is kept in the bank. Whenever required, we can take. Similarly, extra amount of energy is stored in the mitochondria. As and when we require, we can take this extra energy from the mitochondria. Next, we are going to start with the vacuoles. Now, vacuoles, if you remember, in the plant cell, they are big vacuole, and in animal cell, there are small vacuoles. So, vacuoles are the storage sacs, and either the solid or the liquid contents are stored in it. They don't have a definite shape or size, and the structure and the shape of the vacuole, it changes as per the need of the cell, according to the requirement of the cell, the shape and size of the vacuole keeps on changing. Now here also the vacuole is made up of just single membrane, right? Only one single membrane is there. So this is the structure of the vacuole. Now we will study about the functions of the vacuole. What are the functions which are performed by the vacuoles? Now the very first function of the vacuole is that it maintains the osmotic pressure of the cell. If you remember, we had studied about the osmosis, that is the water travels from outside into the cell, right? So that pressure is maintained by the vacuole. Then it stores the end products which are produced in the different metabolic activities like glycogen, proteins, water. These are all stored in the vacuoles. Then in animal cell, they store the waste products, that is the excretory material and food also, while in amoeba it stores food before digestion. Now as we know that amoeba is a unicellular organism. It is made up of just one single cell. So in amoeba, the vacuoles, they store the food. The food is engulfed by the amoeba and then it is stored inside the vacuole before the digestion takes place. Whereas in plant cell, the vacuoles are full of the matrix or the sap which is present inside, and they provide the turgidity and rigidity, that is they maintain the pressure and rigidity to the cell, to the shape. So these are all the functions of the vacuole. Shall we move to the next? Yes. Cell organ we are going to start is plastids. Now you know that in plant, leaves are green in color, flowers are multicolored like red, yellow, orange, blue. Now how do they get these colors? They get the colors from certain organelles of the cells which are called as plastids. Now plastids are having a double structure, a double membrane, that is they are made up of double membrane, inner membrane and outer membrane, and these are only present in the plants. Okay, plastids are only present in the plants. There are two types of plastids. Actually there are three types of plastids: leucoplast, chromoplast and third is chloroplast. Chloroplast, we know it gives green color. Leucoplast is white or it is colorless, and chromoplast have the different colors. So there are different pigments present in the plastids which I'll show you in the next slide. So leucoplast, chromoplast and chloroplast. Chloroplast green in color, chromoplast different colors and leucoplast are white or colorless. Now these chromoplast, they convert into other types of chromoplast also, right? So this is all about the plastids. Now as I told you that there are different pigments due to which the different colors are given to the plants. Now first is chlorophyll, that is we know it is green and it gives green color to the leaves, to the stem, right? Then next is carotene. Carotene is a pigment which gives orange color, so it is present in the carrot. Xanthophyll pigment gives yellow color. Anthocyanin gives purple and blue color, and betalains, they give dark pink or the purplish color, the color of the beetroot. Okay, so these are the different pigments which are present in the chromoplast of different plants. and they give different colors to the organ. Now, the last cell organelle which we are going to study in the lesson is chloroplast. Though it is last, but it plays a very, very important function because, yes, because they perform the process of photosynthesis, that is synthesis of food. Now the chlorophyll that is present inside the chloroplast, it traps the solar energy and it converts into chemical energy. As we had studied, the solar energy is converted into chemical energy in the green parts of the plant, especially in the leaves. Now leaves are having openings which are called as stomata, right? Now photosynthesis is one of the very important function which is performed by the chloroplast. So that is the first and foremost function, that is conversion of solar energy into chemical energy in the form of food. Then chromoplast, they give different colors to fruits and flowers. As I told, chromoplast have different colors, right? Then leucoplast, they help in the synthesis and storage of food. Food like starch, proteins, these are stored in the leucoplast. Now, if you remember, in mitochondria, I told you that DNA or the genetic material is present. And the second organ in the cell is plastid, in which the genetic material DNA is present. So, these two organs can replicate themselves as they have their own DNA or the genetic material. Okay, so with this we finish with the different organelles present inside the cell, and chloroplast, which is green in color, and it performs one of the very important function, that it converts the solar energy into chemical energy. The last topic of the cell, it is actually the information given in the textbook. We had studied about the prokaryotic cell in 7th standard, right? So here the differences between the prokaryotic cell and eukaryotic cell is given, which we had already studied in the 7th standard. So it's just a revision. Let's go through it. Prokaryotic cell, the size is 1 to 10 micrometer, whereas eukaryotic cells are 5 to 100 micrometers in size. Then number of chromosomes in eukaryotic cells are more than 1, whereas in prokaryotic cell there is only and only one single chromosome. Then nucleus. What is the difference in the nucleus of eukaryotic and prokaryotic cell? In eukaryotic cell, the nucleus is very distinct with the nuclear membrane, nucleolus and nucleoplasm, right? Whereas in prokaryotic, the nucleoid resembling nucleus is present. Only one nucleus is present, whereas that is the outer membrane and the other parts are missing. But in eukaryotic cell, the nuclear membrane can be seen, the nucleolus is very distinct, and nucleoplasm, the liquid, is also very clear. Then in prokaryotic cell, they don't have the membrane bound cell organelles, whereas in eukaryotic cell, the membrane bound organelles are very clearly present, like mitochondria and plastids. The example of prokaryotic cell is bacteria, and eukaryotic cells are present in highly evolved unicellular and multicellular plants and animals. Okay, students, this we finish up with the lesson, that is lesson number 10, cell and cell organelles. So I hope and I am fully assured that next time you will be ready with the answers of the workbook lesson number 10. Please find out the answers. Everything is given in the textbook. Please be ready with the answers. Until then, take care of yourself and your family members, your relatives, your neighbors, your friends, and thank you.